I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at SpencerFernando.com. Welcome back to the show, Spencer, and I hope you had a great Canada Day.
Yeah, you too. Good to be here.
Spencer, how was Prime Minister Trudeau received at the G20 meeting in Japan?
Well, it seemed he had some awkward moments. There was some controversy about a video that, I guess, a short version of it was released, and then some said the longer version made him look better, but a lot of people still said it made him look pretty bad. Definitely awkward body language between him and China's President Xi, obviously for good reason. And then with Bolsonaro, whether he was pointing at someone who should shake his hand or being snubbed, kind of awkward there as well. Trudeau did end up having not a meeting, but a quick chat on the sidelines for a few minutes with the Chinese president. But it doesn't seem like anything of substance really took place. And it seems like Trump didn't really raise the issue of the detained Canadians with China either. So not too much progress on that front, unfortunately.
Does Canada need to take a much stronger stand when it comes to China?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's one thing I've been writing about quite a lot. Is that basically what we keep doing is China will escalate against us and then we'll say, oh, we're not going to escalate back and we just want meetings. So the lesson being sent, obviously, is that China can just really do whatever they want, treat our country badly, kidnap Canadians, and there's no consequence. So that leads not only China to realize where there's anything, but other countries realize it too. And, I've seen people say, oh, well, Canada's also detaining a citizen from China. Except she's out on bail, living in one of her 2 Vancouver mansions. She's allowed to travel around Vancouver. The 2 Canadians are basically being kept in rooms where the lights are on all the time. They barely get to sleep. They barely get a chance to talk to lawyers, haven't been able to see their families. So no comparison between the way the communists are treating Canadian citizens who obviously were arrested under false pretenses. Like, let's not be foolish here. I mean, what a coincidence that 2 Canadians are arrested for spying, apparently. So, yeah, I mean, we're just sending a message of weakness. And in our personal lives, each of us knows this. If someone keeps treating you badly and you let them get away with it, at some point they're just going to say, well, I guess I can just do whatever I want to this person and nothing happens. And look, that's how Canada's acting. And China's obviously getting away with it.
The Chinese have banned Canadian canola, pork, and beef. Should Canada start banning Chinese products? Certainly, I think the best place to start would be a tariff on, just pick something, put a tariff on it. It's not even the product, it's just sending the message that's important. But also banning Huawei. That's a very simple thing to do. Canada's just getting started really building up our 5G networks. And there's other companies that can do it. Companies headquartered in countries that have values more in line with Canada. So certainly, I would say ban Huawei, put some tariffs on a few products. Just something to send. The thing is, it doesn't really even matter what it is. It just matters that people see, okay, if you mistreat Canada, there's going to be some sort of response. So they know it's not going to be easy for them. And until that happens, we just look weak. Why did Prime Minister Trudeau go to Washington to meet President Trump?
Well, there are a few issues to talk about the new NAFTA or whatever they want to call it. And then Trudeau wanted to ask for Trump to help with the detained Canadians. He had to do that because China won't answer his calls, and Chrystia Freeland also can't get her calls answered. So we're in a very weak position. But again, they asked the U.S. if Trump brought it up. The U.S. said talk to Canada, which is a bit strange considering the U.S. should know if their own president talked to China about the detained Canadians or not. And then Trudeau said, oh yeah, I think he brought it up. But you'd have to ask the states that. So they just keep going back and forth. Oh, ask Canada, ask the states, ask Canada, ask the states. So that kind of leads me to believe he probably didn't bring it up.
Is it foolish for Canada to rely on the U.S. to do work that we need to have done? And also, Canada doesn't even have an ambassador to China right now.
No, I mean, we're not in a good position. We're not respected enough for them to even answer a call, so that's pretty bad. And there was a really good column by Andrew Coyne recently where he talked about the fact that a lot of Canada's political elites, including, Brian Mulroney, said that we should send Jean Chrétien to go negotiate for Canada. And then Chrétien started musing about how, Canada should just release Meng Wanzhou and get the whole thing to go away. So and then China brought in the new restrictions on Canadian meat after that. So I think what China sees is, the more we bully Canada, the more the people in charge and the people connected to those in charge talk about giving us what we want. So they have no incentive to negotiate with us, no incentive to talk to us, and they're seeing that they get rewarded for escalating their bullying. So, until that changes, until there's some backbone shown, then I think it's not looking too good for the detained Canadians, and it's quite unfortunate.
The BC Union of Municipalities has allowed China to set up a sponsorship, $6,000, so they have a hospitality suite and everything to influence Canadian politicians. Should China be given such a privilege?
No, not at all. And again, it's very disturbing. The lack of, I don't know what you call it, lack of patriotism, lack of nationalism that we're seeing in the country right now. Where we keep bending over and trying to appease people who are treating us horribly. And it's basic human nature. It doesn't really change. It's pretty simple. If people treat you badly and you reward them for it, well, then the message they get is, I'll just keep treating you badly. And that's what we seem to be doing. Despite all the evidence that being nice in response to aggression isn't working, that seems to be the only thing anyone in charge is trying. I was glad to see Andrew Scheer at least say that there should be a Huawei ban, that he would take a tougher position. Scheer generally not really seen as the toughest leader, but at least he's proposing doing something in response. He's really the only one who's talked about that. So I think he does deserve some credit from that. And really any response would be better than what we have going on right now.
With Canadian canola now piling up because it's not going to China, any thoughts about converting it to biodiesel? Wouldn't that help our carbon footprint?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. I wouldn't be against giving some financial assistance to farmers as well as they manage the transition. It's not their fault that we're embroiled in a trade dispute. So giving assistance to farmers, I think, would be a good thing to do. But yeah, if there may be some economic pain from it, but at some point, just across the board, we're going to have to look and say, we can't be reliant on China economically because this is the game they play. The more we rely on them, then the more they have influence and control over us. And right now, our trade with them is a very small fraction of our economy, so it's something we can certainly afford to move away from, or at least be more careful about, without any serious overall pain to the economy. And the sooner we do it, the better, because if we just wait and trade goes up, and then we're more reliant on them, then the pain will be worse whenever they want it to be worse.
Should Canada put tariffs on products imported from China until China buys more from Canada to equal out the trade?
For sure. I think it's got to be a tit-for-tat thing. And it doesn't have to be a crazy escalation of response. We don't have to go overboard. But just make it very clear. If you do something, we do something. A reasonable response sends a clear message. And I think that's a good basis to negotiate from. We're saying, look, we're not going to go crazy. But we're going to say, you block some of our products, and we're going to block some of yours. You put a tariff on something, we're going to put a tariff on you. And either they'll get the message and they'll negotiate, or they won't get the message, and that's also fine, because what we end up doing is just decoupling our economy from China over the long term, which I think is probably good for our national security.
2 Canadians have been arrested in China accused of spying. Isn't it much more likely that there are Chinese spies in Canada, and shouldn't the RCMP be doing a better job of looking for them?
Well, certainly. Australia's had a lot of discussion about influence from China, influence in their political system. There's actually a book that was going to be discussing that in Australia, and the publisher pulled it at the last minute under what is widely considered pressure from China. And then some experts actually said that Canada is probably more influenced and more at risk of influence from China even than Australia is. So that's certainly something we should be investigating. But again, that would require some toughness and common sense and patriotism from Canada's politicians, which seems to be pretty absent.
A Chinese government organization openly was giving money to candidates for mayor in Richmond, which has a very high ethnic Chinese population. Should that be allowed?
No, I mean, people are free to spend their money however they want. But if you have a situation where it's obviously money coming from a foreign country, controlled by a foreign country, then that should not be allowed. It's really interesting how Canadian media spends all this time talking about so-called foreign influence in the U.S. election. But obvious influence, foreign influence in Canadian democracy doesn't really get mentioned too much. That's quite interesting.
If China is going to interfere in the Canadian elections, who would they want elected?
Well, at this point, I think they'd want Trudeau to get in. I mean, that kind of weakness is something I'm sure they'd want to pay for. Right now, they can get away with whatever they want. And the real thing is that China, I mean, they are using Canada as a punching bag to basically send a message to the rest of the West. They want to send a warning. Like, okay, so this is what happens when you defy what China wants, and when you do something we disagree with. This is how you get punished. And so they keep hitting Canada, and we're not hitting back. We're not pushing back at all. And so not only are we hurting ourselves, we're also hurting our allies, because this is going to send a message to other countries, and they're going to get a little more afraid, and it's going to enhance China's influence. So it's really just a disaster across the board.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp, RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp is a Canadian-based mineral exploration project generator. The company currently holds multiple property interests in Ontario with joint venture partners and is seeking further joint venture partners for other drill-ready properties in our portfolio. For more information, please visit our website at rmroyalty.com or call me at 604-922-2030.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, are Canadians rejecting the push for globalism?
I mean, I'm not really sure. I guess we'll see in the election what's going to happen. I think there is a growing sense that we shouldn't be spending as much money in foreign countries as we are at home. There was a poll out that shows Andrew Scheer got slightly more support among Trudeau, among Indigenous Canadians, 20% for Scheer, 19% for Trudeau. The Conservatives and NDP are at 26, both among Indigenous Canadians. The Liberals at 24. So Trudeau's talked a lot about reconciliation, but obviously his words and actions don't really match. And I think a lot of Indigenous people look and see Trudeau always seems interested in helping legal border crossers, always seems interested in helping foreign countries, non-Canadian citizens. But when it comes to many of the Indigenous people struggling in Canada, it seems like he doesn't want to do that much. He just wants to talk but not actually get anything done. So, I think we'll see what happens. I think there's certainly, in much of the Western world, a movement of a lot of countries, people wanting their governments to focus more at home, focus more on their own citizens. We'll see what happens in the election, though.
Did the Trudeau government give nearly $300 million to Latin American countries to help them reduce their greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, McKenna announced it. I think it was about $250 million, somewhere around there. Mostly Caribbean and some Latin American countries, I think, to help businesses mitigate the impact of climate change, which again, how can you tell veterans that they're asking for too much? How can you have, there's parts of Winnipeg even, many neighborhoods with many Indigenous. So you have people in Canada really living in third world conditions, people in Canada struggling. I think it's Pikangikum, I think northern Manitoba, maybe northern Ontario, has the worst suicide rate on a per capita basis in the world. So we've got some serious problems in Canada. Taxpayer dollars to other countries, while problems here in Canada are still ongoing and not being fixed. I don't think that sits well with people.
Well, don't we have well over 400 Aboriginal communities that still don't have access to clean drinking water? I'm thinking $250 million, maybe $1 million for a clean water plant. Wouldn't that solve that problem overnight?
You think so, but the government doesn't seem to be too interested in that. But I've seen criticism of the way they report advisory ending, so I'm not sure actually there has been that much progress there. And I would say disaster relief and foreign aid to me are two different. If there's say a tsunami somewhere, and hundreds of thousands of people are at risk of dying of disease, certainly I have no problem with countries pitching in to help out. But when you're talking about giving money to another country that they're going to then give to some of their corporations or businesses, to me that doesn't make sense when you have problems in your own country. So again, I think we should really bring foreign aid to an end and focus here at home. But, I guess there's not the big international news headlines that politicians love so much, so they keep giving our money away.
Are job losses on the rise in Canada?
Yeah, I think it was the ADP employment report showed a drop of, I think it was about 16,000 jobs. I think that's calculated differently than the Stats Canada number. There's really a big disconnect between the numbers the government claims and what people are feeling. I think part of that is because the economy has changed. Someone may be technically employed, so they'd show up on the list as having a job, but they may have no benefits, no job security. They're not being paid well. It's piecemeal work. It's very different than when if someone was employed in the past, you'd be pretty sure it was a job with benefits, stability, security. So I think the way we measure these things is really getting out of date with the economy, and it's obviously a disconnect for a reason.
Well, also, too, you're only counted as unemployed in Canada as long as you're collecting employment insurance. The second that runs out, you disappear, and you're no longer counted as unemployed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it totally seems like a system designed to make the government look better. I mean, if someone can't find a job for so long and they just say, I give up, then they're technically not reported as unemployed anymore, which, that's convenient for the government. It's the same with the way they talk about GDP. They say, GDP went up 0.5% this year. People think, the economy grew. And yeah, technically it's bigger, but if GDP went up 0.5% and due to immigration and population growth, the population of the country went up 1.2% in the same year, then the average person is actually poorer, and they often don't include the effect of population growth.
We'll have more with Spencer Fernando right after this.
Cyprus Development Corp is developing a world-class lithium resource in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. The size of the resource makes the Clayton Valley project a premier asset with the potential to impact the future of lithium supply. Cyprus Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the OTCQB, symbol CYDVF, and on Frankfurt, symbol C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cyprusdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Spencer Fernando. Spencer, what are Conservative leader Andrew Scheer's election platforms?
Yeah, I think 5 kind of set speeches. He's talked about crime, the economy, election. The most recent one was his environmental plan to cap it off. He's, I think, trying to be fairly center-right, not go too far to the right, stick pretty close to the center. He's being pretty careful. Immigration seems like he hasn't released specific numbers for what the actual yearly intake would be. His environmental plan, probably ironically the most detailed of everything he released, 60 pages. So that's interesting. But yeah, it's not an official platform. It's just mostly positioning at this point, trying to make himself appear to be moderate, which I think in many ways he is. I don't think he's really faking anything. But we'll have to see in the election what his actual plans are. But, I mean, as we've seen in past elections, detailed platforms don't seem to necessarily make a huge difference.
The Conservatives always make a big deal about crime. Prime Minister Harper opened up a prison in the Maritimes that's empty. Do they use crime to panic people into voting for them when numbers for crime seem to be going down in Canada?
There may be an element of that. I think it's fair for people to be concerned about crime. The thing about the overall numbers is that they often, the overall number may be going down, but some communities will see a spike in crime. And anytime people hear of a shooting or stabbings or violence, it's understandably concerning. I think one of the big concerns is the Liberals actually are the ones, in many cases, fear-mongering when it comes to gun crime. Every time there's a shooting, which is really attributed to a gang, probably using an illegal gun anyway, they try to bring in new laws to take guns away from law-abiding gun owners who are not the source of crime or gun crime. So I think all the parties play kind of their fear-mongering games. I don't think anyone's got a monopoly on that one.
Are Maxime Bernier and the People's Party of Canada starting to gain traction?
It's tough to tell. I mean, they're anywhere between 1% and 4% in most of the polls, so we'll see what happens. I think the big thing for him is if he gets in the debate and how well he does. That's could be a problem for Scheer. If Bernier out-debates Scheer, then that could be very bad for the Conservatives. Not sure that's going to happen. So far, yeah, they seem stuck between 1% and 4%. And then the question is infrastructure, right? Because it's one thing to get asked in the national poll who are you going to vote for. But if a party doesn't have the infrastructure or the money to run the ads or to get the vote out, then the overall number is often less important than who actually turns out to vote. So we'll see what happens. He seems like he's in it for the long haul at least. So if he wins his own seat, which is still iffy at this point, then maybe he'll keep going. Maybe he'll pick up a few. But so far it seems like they're pretty low in the polls.
Is the climate change narrative just a globalist excuse to extract more taxes from specific nations, including Canada?
Well, I mean, in some cases there certainly are things going on with the climate. I mean, I don't think the whole thing is conspiracy, but what I think is the problem is that all of it is being directed against Western countries. I've got a tweet, actually my pinned tweet shows where emissions are coming from. And so you've got total global emissions. China, 27.2%. United States, 14.6%. India, 6.8%. Canada, you can barely see it on the chart there. It's 1.6%. So we're putting a carbon tax in our country. We're restricting our own energy. All these countries, or these international groups lecture Canada about things. But really it's China where the big problem is. And then in the States, emissions have been going down in the States and going up heavily in India. So the idea that somehow Canada, by putting in a carbon tax or hurting our own energy industry, is going to make a change, is just foolish. So, it may not be a conspiracy or anything. And there certainly are things happening with the climate and in some cases warming. The question is what to do about it. And is taxing Canadians the right thing? I don't think so.
Are some Canadian elites using offshore tax havens to avoid paying taxes in Canada, and is that legal?
Yeah, the Panama Papers had shown a lot of kind of top Canadian elites doing that. In many cases, it is legal. They're not breaking the law. The question, of course, is why is the law allow them to do that? Should there be some sort of limit? Should there be a crackdown? I think there should be. I mean, the problem is we see taxes with the carbon tax going up on middle-class, low-income Canadians, especially who feel it the worst. And then, people at the top with tons of money, they send their money overseas. So the people at the top aren't paying taxes, and then the rest of us are. I don't think that sits too well with people. And again, it's no surprise that the Liberals or the Conservatives really didn't crack down on that, because I'm sure a lot of their top donors are probably doing that, so they don't want to interfere. But at some point, I think you can't ask regular people to pay taxes when there's these avenues for the super rich to avoid their taxes as well.
I saw a story recently where they estimated the amount of money being missed out by the government of Canada by evaded taxes was in the billions, maybe $50 billion. Wouldn't it be worth the government's time and effort to put more tax investigators into the game to get that money?
I would think so, yeah. Instead of going after, small businesses or regular people, maybe go after the billions that's being sent out of the country. I think at the same time, if you're going to crack down on that, and I think they down on that, flip side also, you can't have massive tax rates for. So you say to people, you've got to pay your taxes. You've got to pay it in this country. You can't be sending your money all over the place. But at the same time, we're not going to have confiscatory taxation levels on you, because then that's the incentive for people to do that in the first place. So there's got to be a bit of a give and take for people, I think. Relatively low tax rates and then crack down on people sending them overseas.
Do you think one of the reasons why the government isn't going after these tax cheats is they don't want to hurt their elite buddies?
Well, yeah, I think if you remember when I think Stephen Bronfman was, there was a story, I think it was the Panama Papers, talking about how either he or people connected to him were using offshore accounts, and he was a top donor to the Liberal Party, a booster of Justin Trudeau as well. And then literally a day after that story came out, Trudeau went in front of the media and said, "I've spoken with the CRA and we looked into this, and there's nothing wrong here. He didn't break any laws. There's no problem." Funny that most of us have to wait an extremely long time to get cleared by the CRA if we're being investigated or to get a refund. But when Trudeau, someone connected to him, oh, boom, a day later, the PM talked with CRA and got the answers and the guy's all clear. That's what a coincidence. So, yeah, there's obviously a double standard for people close to power, people with a lot of influence, people connected to Trudeau. It's a different rules for them.
Spencer, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, good talking to you.
My guest has been investigative reporter Spencer Fernando. You can find his articles at spencerfernando.com. If you have any questions for Spencer or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.